Welcome to the Global Justice Report, an online production brought to you by the Center for Global Justice. The Center for Global Justice is a research and learning center located in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico. I will be your host for today. Since we started these webinars, we have not had our usual revenue generating programs. And so we depend upon you for your donations. If you can donate, we would love to have your contribution so we can continue to pay our Mexican staff and continue these webinars. You can donate at globaljusticecenter.org. Our speaker today is José Andrés Fuentes González. He will be talking about a new book about to be published on alternatives in times of the crisis of civilization. José is a researcher and consultant at the Center for Solidarity Economy and Social Research. He's collaborated for 15 years in the Yomo Hotel Cooperative Group in Chiapas, Mexico, and has been linked to various rural, peasant, and indigenous organizations for more than 20 years. He's an industrial engineer by training from the Universidad Iberoamericana and has a PhD in environmental studies from the Pablo de Olavide University in Seville, Spain. So let me turn the floor over to José, and after his presentation, we will then open the floor for your questions and comments. Okay, José, take it away.
So thank you very much, Cliff, and regards to everybody here. Thanks for the invitations. Thanks, Cliff. Thanks, Roberto. And oh, yeah, okay. I was looking the changes here. So I will share my screen for the presentation. Okay, but before of that, well, just finished to thank everybody that makes this possible. I'm very glad to be here to be able to share all these things that personally are very interesting for me. And also, well, my English is not the best. I hope it's good enough for this presentation. But my dear friend Renata here will be helping me with some things, some concepts or some ideas that I can be able to traduce. I don't know how. Okay, let me just finish here. I think now you're seeing the presentation, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, thank you very much again. Very happy to be here. Thank Renata, thanks Roberto and Cliff. And well, I want to share a little bit about these ideas about the crisis of the civilization. I don't know if it's well said to traduce it as civilizational crisis. Maybe not. There are a lot of concepts that I work in Spanish and I try to translate. But not every time is a happy ending with it. So if you have any doubts or any comentario, Renata, comments, yeah?
Any comments? Yeah.
Yeah, any comments? Thank you. You can just raise your hand or automatically just talk, and we will be talking about this. So I want to talk a little bit about this enfoque, Renata. How would you say this?
This focus.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, like this focus or this point of view about the crisis of the civilization by making a radical analysis, right? Like trying to go to the roots, to the profound of this problem that we are facing. So I divided the presentation in these three main topics, right? I want to go very, very fast because I know it's a topic that I guess almost of you, everybody here, have heard about it or know about it, right? This crisis of the civilization or civilizational crisis. I want to be a little more, I want to spend a little more time in making a radical analysis, a radical point of view about this crisis and about the alternatives. And I want to finish with just some ideas about the transition time that we're going to face. Just some ideas because it's actually it's a thing, it's very open, it's very debatido, Renata.
It's very debated.
Yeah, it's very debated nowadays. So just some ideas, not as conclusions, but as ideas. So this is what we're going to talk. I want to spend around 40 minutes. I will try to be like that. That will be that will be making me to go a little bit fast in some topics, but I think we can do it good. So, well, let's start with this crisis of the civilization, right? So I guess a lot of people have heard about this. I think it's something that we can see it in almost every part of the human world, right? We can do like different kind of analysis. Like here we have a lot of topics, a lot of things about the human world, right? And if we see or if we study like each one of them, we will see that in all of them we're having a lot of problems, right? In the socially, environmentally, in economics, in politics, also in medicine, right? This is something that is not very talked about, but you can Google it. This iatrogenesis in Spanish, I think in English is the same, and it's not a disease, but it's the deaths caused by the medical system, right? Like I go to the doctor because I don't feel good. I have a headache or something, and the pills that I take make me go sick and they kill me, right? So this is a very important thing that we don't talk about it very much. Also, we can see it in education, in knowledge, this epistemological crisis that we are facing also. So we can see it in a lot of things. We don't have to go to each one of them. So we know that there are not a lot of crises, like separate crises, but it's one crisis that we're going through, right? And this reflects in what I say we have on sustainability also in the social world, but also environmentally. This is very known, right, about the climate change and stuff. So it's impossible not to talk nowadays about the COVID-19 very, very fast. For me, it's better to see it not as an enemy, not as a disease as it is, right? But as a symptom of something else, a symptom of this crisis of the civilization. Well, there are some authors that they say that this marks the beginning of the 21st century because it will mark like the dynamics and the social dynamics that we're going to face during this century. And we don't have to play to be Nostradamus to say this, right? But we have just to know that if we continue the same path, if we continue the same things, we will be in the same problems, right? If we continue the exploitation of the Mother Earth, of the natural resources, as we have been doing it, right? We will have the same problem. So if we think the COVID-19 as a symptom, then we have to ask, symptom of what? What is this a symptom of? And I think, and a lot of people think, that this is a symptom of this crisis of the civilization, right? Or and that makes us, I think, to think about this radical analysis. When I say radical, there's a lot of people that think radical as something extremista, Renata.
Yeah, extremist.
Extreme, yeah. But it's not only that. Radical, it means that it wants to go to the roots, to the origins, to the causes. So in this term, we need radical analysis, right? If we want to understand the problems that we're facing, we have to understand their causes. I think this is a very interesting exercise, like to think in a different way. I call this in Spanish dislocar las preguntas, like to shift the point of view of the questions, and by doing that, we can like rearrange how we are looking to these questions. So when I don't know, I put here just some examples. When we think of poverty, we usually think that we have to make something with the people that live in poverty, right? The poor people. But we have to think poverty as a relationship. They're poor people because they're rich people. That's it. If everybody will be the same kind of poor or the same kind of rich, we wouldn't have poor and rich people. So poverty is not a thing that we have to change in some people. Poverty is a relationship. And if we don't approach this problem as a relationship, we will never be able to solve it, right? So we have a lot of things just like it, as we can think it in different ways. And this kind of thinking, this kind of shift the questions can help us to look at different ways and then have different answers. That for me is the most important part. So we all know that we need profound changes also in our worldview, in our Western worldview of the world, right? We usually don't say worldview for the Western culture, for the scientific culture, but it is also a worldview that we must acknowledge, that we are looking to the world just in a way, and this marks the reality that we are studying and that we are experiencing, right? So this is for me very important. If we want to transform reality, if we want a global justice, if we want to transform the world we're living, we first have to ask, what is reality? Because we usually don't ask that question, and we go automatically to try to transform it, but not question what is it. So for me, this is very important to do this radical analysis about the situation of the world. So I'm taking more time than I would like, but I hope I can be in time. So this, if we want to look at this crisis, right? We want to do a radical analysis. We have to try to go to the roots, and we have to ask, right? What are the roots, or what are the causes, the principal causes of this civilization, the civilizational crisis, or crisis of the civilization? And let me just say something. When I say crisis of the civilization, that is what I mean. I mean, it's very profound, because the civilization that was conceived and that was made in this world around 5, 6, 7,000 years ago, that is what we're talking about. The human project of what we call nowadays civilization, right? So what are the roots of this crisis? What I think, right? I made a book that Cliff was saying a while ago, and I find, I don't know what is happening. Okay, I find 3 main roots of this crisis, right? One is very known, the Western civilizational project that is based on the ideas of progress, of development, with this social colonialism very present in this project, and the idea of industrialization, right? Also this capitalist point of view, but also we need to remember also the communist and the socialist point of view, because they share the same root, they share the same worldview, this Western worldview, right? The second root I can see here, it's the patriarchy. the patriarchal dominance in almost all the cultures and all societies in the world. This is new, this new idea, this feminist movement that I admire and celebrate a lot. It's making see us this kind of things and the importance to see about this patriarchy. And the third root I find, it's not very talked about, but it's the domination of our own human ego in this that separates us from the world, right? We see the world through the mind. We see the world through our mind, our conditioned mind. So what we see in the reality, it's not necessarily what there it is to see in reality. It is what we can see with our own glasses about the reality. So this is very important. Someone can think that, well, this is a good talk to have with some beers or something, right? But I think it's very important to talk this very seriously as the roots, the profound roots of the crisis that we are facing, right? So we need to assume the depth of the problem, right? This is the crisis of the civilization, and what we're going to see in the next decades, I think, it's the most common, the most probable collapse of the civilization. We can talk about the collapse by the environmental collapse due to the climate change, or we can talk the collapse as the industrial world system that can collapse, or we can talk both. That I think actually that's what's going to happen, right? The climate change and also the unsustainability, the intrinsical, Renata, intrinsical, yeah. So
Intrinsic.
Thank you. The intrinsical unsustainability of the project of progress and development, right? Okay. So after saying all of this, I am I'm sorry to take a lot of time in this, but for me it's very important that if we want really to solve or to understand this problem, we need radical analysis and also radical alternatives, not just like very superficial ones, like alternatives that go deep into the roots. So trying to understand this is what I wanted to say about the crisis of the civilization. Now I want to show this table, this matrix, this I don't know how to say this image, right? Actually, it is the index of this book that was saying Cliff. I hope in a couple of months it can be ready. It's in Spanish. I'm sorry about that, or at least for now. But well, what I want to see here is in one part, right? We have the crisis of the civilization, and in the other we have the alternatives, and we have like different levels of profoundness. Renata, profundidad.
Yeah, the depth.
Oh, the depth. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So, like the depth of the human conception of the world in the crisis part and in the alternatives part. I see the alternatives not exclusively, but in a very important way in the postmodern sciences. We're talking about complexity. We're talking about quantum physics. We're talking about biology. We're talking about postmodern science. Yeah, there's a lot of movement in this scientific approach, but also, and I think most important, in what they call the epistemologies of the South, or the South epistemologies, right? Is that like the knowledge that the common people, the peasant people, the indigenous people have had like in all the history, and in our Western arrogance, we haven't no nos hemos acercado, Renata. We haven't gone closer.
Exactly. Yeah, we haven't approached.
Approach, yeah, that was the word I was looking for. Thank you. Like we have an approach to hear. We have approached these knowledges like the pharmaceutics have done, like to extract the knowledge, right? I go to the communities, I ask for what plants or what remedies they use to cure some diseases, and they then go, they put it in a laboratory, and they patentar, right, Renata?
Yeah.
They patent it. So there is the approach, but there is not the approach like to make a dialogue, to open the dialogue, the knowledge, right? The knowledge dialogue. So I don't want to go in each one of them because then we'll never finish this presentation, but I want to leave it here. I will share the presentation with Roberto and Cliff so they can share it with you. So if anyone wants to go a little bit more in the depth or in the details of this, they can do it, right? So I want to make this presentation about this, the 4 levels I see, right? The first part that I want to go very, very fast because of the time and because it's something that is very talked, because it's just the first part of the depth or of the profundity of this, right? Is what I call human tasks. There are a lot of them, but we're talking about here about the economy, the modern economy, the conventional economy, right? And also we will see that in the alternatives, we have other alternatives. The good living, this now good living, very talked about, very, very famous, right? The Suma Camaña, the Suma Causay in the Andes, the Lequilcuxlejal in Chiapas, the Yegnemilis for the Nahuatl. We have a lot of expressions of this good living or good life, and also I call well-doings. I don't know if they are the exact words, but let's try to see a little bit about them. So, first we said, we see the world through our glasses and then the reality comes to life, right? So how are we seeing the world in the economized view of reality? How are we looking to this? You almost for sure have heard about this Homo economicus, right? Like this new kind of human being. It would be best said this new kind of man, because it's rationally, it's selfish, it's competitive, it's individualistic, it's manlish. I don't know how to say it.
Yeah. Yeah, manly man.
Exactly. So this is it, and this is like the subject of study of the economics. So the economics, they're not studying like the human beings in all our complexity. They're studying the Homo economics, and this what happens. These have a lot of consequences in our worldview, because we're looking to the world, to the reality as if it was an economized reality. I don't know how to say this, but we can see also, I don't want to enter in this because I can keep talking about this a lot, but if you see the axioms or the basic assumptions that the economy makes, they're very, very weak. I would invite you, the people who want to do this, like to look at the actions or the basic assumptions of the economy, and they do not sustain. That is incredible, because we have been like constructing this discipline of the world for almost 3 centuries, and the epistemological bases are almost the same. I mean, it's incredible. That doesn't happen in physics, that doesn't happen in biology, that doesn't happen in sociology, that doesn't happen in chemistry, but it happens in economy. Like the epistemological bases are the same as 200 years ago. For me, that is very, very impressive, because economics is so important in our life, and epistemologically, thinking about it, it's very, very weak. So I hope there are not some economics here that are going to get mad at me, but we can talk about it in the last part. So scarcity, we see the world as if by the glasses of scarcity. So, but this is not a normal thing. This is not a human thing. It's a Western thing that is very different. Also, there are some cultures that they see this as a disease, as this Homo economicus that is very normal in the Western culture. There are other cultures that they see that as a disease that has to be cured, that has to be taken by the community. And that is, for me, very important, because we're trying to understand the economic part of the world to try to solve it, right? And these have very important consequences, of course, when we study, when we see the world, right? But we have other kind of economies. We have other kind of practices that we can do. They talked about them as transformational economies. There are a lot of them. They're in construction also. right? I practically work with solidarity economies, but there are a lot. There are ecological economies, communal economies, political economics, social and solidarity. There are a lot of frameworks that are being worked and being constructed all the time, right? So we have very important alternatives in this part. What do they support them? I cannot stop, or I cannot talk about this, but we have a lot of bases, right? With a lot of epistemological rigorosity. That's well done, Renata. Like,
Yeah, rigor.
yeah, like with epistemological rigor. Like, these are not just like good wishes, right? Like, it's very good. It's very que bonito, right? Like these have very serious and very rigorous epistemological trasfondos, right, Renata?
Background.
Background. Thank you very much. So they put the life at the center. They seek to maximize social and environmental benefit, not just only economical benefit, right? They try to build new relationships with the world and with the human beings. This is not only with the human beings, it's very important, but also our relationship with the world, with Mother Nature, with the forest, with the river, with the oceans, with Gaia, right? We're looking for these new kinds of relationships. These relationships that que nos pueden encaminar, Renata, that they can like
That
take us
can
to the,
set us on the path.
yeah, to construct the good living, the buen vivir, right? Because we can't, we will see it in a few moments, we can't have good living or buena vida without having harmony with our family, with our territory, with our ancestors, with our etc. Right? So we can build this buen vivir with these things that solidarity economies work a lot on it, right? So, Renata, I don't know if you want to complement something about what has been said.
Yeah, I would like to. So something I really liked about your last presentation is you mentioned how there's movements that just greenwash things. So yeah, there is this multiple solidarity economies and like social and feminist economies, but there are also the capitalists like, oh, let's make green capitalism. Let's use crypto to save the forest, and without this radical analysis. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that if you want.
I wanted to talk about it in some diapositivas
In some slides. Okay.
Yeah, because I think that it's very important because we talk now about sustainability or about green economy, like if we just to wash it, to put it green before, and that's the alternative. And I think it is more like part of the problem, right? Not really the solution. Also, I think these solidarity economies, they're not like the last alternative. They're just like something that can put us in the path, like to imagine, to construct, to build these new economies. And we have to ask: do we need economic alternative? Let me just think of what I'm going to say. Do we need alternative economies or alternatives to the economy, like in all the way, right? So for me, this is a very important question because we have been working and building a lot of alternative economies for some decades now, but we have to ask, like for me, that if we aren't needing alternatives to all the economy worldview, right? So I don't know the answer. I think for some things we need one, for some others we have another. So let me go. I will just pass this part because this is how all this buen vivir and good living take place. We have this agroecology framework. We have this all this work from Ivan Illich that was a great precursor. Nada? Like, yeah, someone that comes before.
precursor.
I don't know.
The
I'm
word
sorry.
is failing me, but like, yeah.
Yeah, like I think he was the one that started with this all this critic to the development and progress project. So he has very interesting things, and nowadays here in Latin America there is a lot being talking about good living or well-being or well-doing. I don't know exactly the translation, but I think it's very important because they are really alternatives to the worldview of progress and development, right? So I would love to stop here in autonomy and organization because I love this topic, but I will have to just go a little bit faster because I have been here 25 minutes. So I will try to not to run, but to walk a little bit faster. So in the second level of depth, right, we have this idea, this project of civilization. We have, like I said before, the Western project is based on this idea of progress and development. And these other horizons, civilizational horizons, I don't know if it's well said, we are talking about good living, we are talking about sustainability, and I don't know if conviviality, it's well said, but yeah, it comes from the sharing of people, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would call it engagement and harmony.
Yeah, I would love to read Ivan Illich in English, and he has also a lot of texts in English, so I could have the exact terms. But I promise for the next one I can I can work in it. So very fast because I think this is something that you maybe have heard or read about, like this criticism of progress and development, right? Progress means always go better, always more, always faster, always forward, right? It's this idea that we have not only in the human world, but also like in all the world. We usually think in history as if we have been like evolving to better all the time. And that is not the case. That is not like it has been done, right? A difference other cultures, indigenous cultures, Oriental cultures like Buddhism or Hinduism, they think time not as a linear way, right? They think it as a not exactly as a circle, but as a spiral, right? Because time goes and comes back, but never comes to the same place. So it's kind of, but it's recursive. It goes and comes back, right? So the rare thing, or la particularidad, Renata, o lo raro, sería de la cultura occidental en ese sentido.
Yeah, the peculiarity or the exception would be the Western civilization.
Exactly. So I think that's very important for us to see, because we then start seeing these things not only with the Western glasses of the worldview, but in other ways, right? And development, right? Development is like the institutionalization of how progress gets to an institution, right? And it has made a lot of things in the world. We have been walking this development path for around 7 decades, right? 70 years. This literally started with the Truman inaugural speech, right? 1949, it has a day exactly. And this day, like the world started to think in development, like basis, right? Or ideas or path. So it's very important. I don't want to stop here a lot of more time, but it's very important. Like what is the horizon or the objectives of this progress is to have more consumption, to go like to more, or to live like this. I don't know what city this maybe Los Angeles or something like this, but like this is the goal, right? This is where we have to go. And not only for the States or for England or for Europe, like for all the world. And this is like very important thing that we're going to see in the next level of depth, right? Obviously, this Western project has had a lot of benefits, a lot of individual freedoms, a lot of high levels of consumption, a lot of technology, but also it has a lot of serious problems, right? Environmentally, socially, and also for me, it is very important to talk about it existentially. I don't know if that is well done, Renata, but the existentialmente, right?
Yeah.
So there are a lot of studies right now on these last 20 or 30 years about this, but it's very important because it is not making people happier. For me, this is essential, because why do we want all this? Why do we want progress? Why do we want development? Why do we want more levels of consumption? Why do we need more institutions? Why do we need all of this? In theory, for me, to make people happier, right? For me, I think. But when we see reality, when we see the facts, it seems that people in the States, people in England, people in Denmark, people in Australia aren't being happier than the people in Costa Rica, in Colombia, or in Mexico. Just to think some countries that are well rated in these happiness studies. So I think we have to think of this Western project as a failure, of a civilizational failure. I think I know this for some people may sound like a little bit hard. I don't know, but we have to be talking about this. I think, right? I think it's a failure because it cannot be universalized. It cannot be for all the people. It is one of the main objectives of this Western project, right? It doesn't make people happier, and also it has been destroying for 200 years. It has been destroying other projects of how to construct the livelihood, right? So we cannot all live as they live in Seattle or as they live in London, and that is a promise that hasn't been addressed by this Western project, right? So we need to talk about that. And we have another project, another ways of seeing this civilizational projects. We have all this here, right? Like the Western project, just some adjectives or some points that how we construct like the horizon, the civilizational horizon of our societies. And we have also other ways of searching for this horizon, social horizon, as to say, right? I won't go through all of this because we don't have time, but we have talked about progress, about good life or good living. We have talked about industrialization, right? But I just wanted to stop in this one because for me it's very important and it's very ejemplificador, Renata. It's very.
It's a great example.
Yeah, like it's a very good example, right? So how do we see nature in our Western worldview? We see nature as a natural resource or natural resources, right? And I always say, what is a resource? Like a resource is, for me, as I understand it, it's like a tool. It's something that has value as this, conforme me sirve a otra cosa, Renata. Como,
it's a means to an end.
Yeah, it's just a mean to an end, and it has value as a mean has something to give me, right? It doesn't have an intrinsic value. It doesn't value by itself. It gains value as I can use it for something else. That is a resource. So looking to nature as natural resources, it's very indicative to me because that is how we see nature. We don't see the forest, we don't see the river, we don't see the lake as they are like sacred. We don't see like their spirits, we don't see their guardians, right? We see just how many tons of paper I can get from this forest, how many liters of water I can obtain from this lake, how many, and how do they see this Gaia, this nature in these indigenous and indigenous cultures. They see it as Mother Earth. And this is very a good example because it is not only a metaphor, it is very literal. You know, for these people, they see in the forest, in the lake, in the stars, in the mountain, they see their mother, our mother. So our relationship that we establish with something that is only a resource and something that is my mother, you know, it's very obvious that the relationship that we're going to establish with this thing, with this nature, will be very different in both projects, right? So it is just an example because we can go like with all of this, like making this analysis. But for me, this is a very good one because it shows how our worldview establishes the reality that we are looking to, right? This is not a metaphor. This is not a good thinking and, oh, this is very, very, que bonito, like very, very cool, or I don't know. But it's very, very profound and it's very important, I think, that we ask for these things, right? So I have to run a little bit, and I'm sorry, but if not, I'll just cut where we can get, so to open the dialogue, right? I wanted to put some ideas or some concepts about this good living idea, right? Because a lot of people, almost here in Latin America, they talk about this as if it was something like good wishes, like this romantic point of view, like, que bonito, the indigenous people, like they see nature as Mother Earth, like, how I don't know how to say this, Renata, but like, que bonito, how cool, right? Like,
yeah, how nice, how
nice. It's exactly, yeah. So I'm sorry, thank you, but it's not only this romantic point of view. It's very, very deep, and it's very real. This is something that people in these geographies, they live, right? They live in this earth spirituality. They live, or they try to live in this harmony with this community, that it's not only humans that they make this community. The community is made also by the guardians of the mountain, by the elders that they don't live now in this plane, right? Of our ancestors, with the animals, right? With Mother Nature. This makes the community. So the community is not just a group of people living in some place, right? So we have a lot of adjectives or a lot of concepts that they make this good living idea in reality. So it's not just a thing of good wishes, it's a practice that has been practiced, valga la redundancia, I don't know, has been practiced for centuries from these people that I work with them in Chiapas. And it's obviously, it has its contradictions. It is not just some perfect civilization over there. Obviously it has its contradictions. Obviously it has its tensions. Obviously it is not perfect, but it has very different values or basis than the Western project, right? So I will go a little bit more in this epistemology level and the cosmogonic one, and try to take maybe 10 more minutes if Cliff is okay with me. So just to talk about this, I call it this hegemonic epistemic paradigm. Okay, yeah, thank you. So I will put all of them because if not, I will never finish. But it is based in this famous René Descartes, Descartes, right? And he said, "I think, therefore I am." Right? This is very, very profound because it is a very good example of this paradigm of or Western paradigm to say, right? Adorno and Horkheimer made an extraordinary analysis about how we know in the modern world, we know by dominating the known. I cannot stop here in this, but it is very, very important because our relationship with the world is made by domination, not by cooperation, not by solidarity, not by learning from the known, but by dominating the known. And this is very, very important of how we see the world, right? So we have materialism, we have separation, we have all these disciplines of studies, right? We have positivism, we have universalism, and I want to say this phrase about Neil deGrasse because I'm a very big fan of Neil deGrasse. I have to say, but this scientific point of view that they always want to see that if the science has the truth, the final truth. Science is a very important and an extraordinary form of knowing the world. It's extraordinary. I love science, but it is not the only way to know the world, and it is not the unique or the best or the ultimate way to know the world. It's one more, very good one, but not the only. So what science says in voice of my beloved Neil deGrasse, right? He says, the good thing about science is that it's true, whether you believe in it or not. And I like to say this because is it always true because science says it is? Because science also have changes of paradigms, right? We have learned about it a lot. So this is a very important political statement, very, very important political statement, because if we can assure that what we say, it doesn't matter who, is true, and all the other things are worldviews or are Renata, here I will need your help, como ideas, mitos, como todas estas cosas, ¿no?
The concept, mythology, paradigms.
Like we see, we understand like Western knowledge, like if it is a truth, and the other knowledges as if there were myths and there were mythologies and they were like, like this very, very despective way of looking to other knowledges.
Yeah, this I would call it paternalistic or
exactly. So I think we have to open this point of view that the Western kind of knowledge is very good one, but it's not the unique, it's not the only one, and maybe it's not the best one. This is very important. So we have to open to this ecology of knowledges or this dialogue of knowledges, right? What kind of knowledges? The native people, the peasants, the cultures of the earth, right? And also this postmodern science. When I say postmodern sciences, I talk about complexity, about transdisciplinarity, about quantum physics, about political ecology, that they have very, very interesting frameworks to study reality. And I think it would be great to open this dialogue of knowledges and to say like, okay, science has a lot of good things to say. We have them here. But what do you Aymaras, what do you Incas, what do you Mayas, what do you Buddhists have to say? What do you think about this? How can we build more knowledge that is more pertinent to our time of crisis of the civilization, right? And also this is very important for me. We in the Western world, we approach nature as to exploit it, to possess it, to dominate it, right? This framework, this point of view invites us to approach nature as students, as to learn from nature. Like, you know, how does the trees communicate with one another? How does the forest operates as a system? How does the bees can make that level of organization? How does the ants make this? How does the, you know, we have a lot of things we can learn from nature, not just approach it to exploit it, right? And we have to construct, to build this Arturo Escobar, this Colombian
Sociologist.
Thank you, Renata. Works this very much, and he's great. Arturo Escobar, if someone wants to look to search for him, he talks about transition narratives. They're not only knowledges; they're narratives, and this is very important because we humans, we build narratives, we build stories, and also knowledges. But what the means, the form that historically human beings have trespassed knowledge from one generation to another has been through stories, through narratives, through myths. And this is very important because that is the way that we humans know the world, right? And we have to understand and to recognize this that I have been talking about in this minutes, right? That reality and knowledge, they make I forgot the word. I'm so sorry about this. But una relación recursiva, Renata. Like it affects one and it affects the other one, right?
Yeah, they make a recursive relationship.
Exactly.
Exactly. A virtuous cycle.
We say in Spanish, right? Like this makes the other one, and then it makes this. It's a
loop.
Recursive relationship. Exactly. So this is very important for me because we know the world and we construct the reality of the world as we know it, right? So maybe 5 more minutes, and I'm sorry about the time, but the most deep or the most profound part that I see. This is what I call the patriarchal modern ego. I don't know if it is well said, but while we have three roots here: the patriarchy, modernity, and ego, right? Modernity, we have talked about it, but modernity, how it sees the world, how it conceives the world, right? It conceives the world. This is very profound philosophically, but as it searches for the one, for like the uniqueness of the basic particle or thing, and as we look or we search for the mostly basis, then the other part, in Spanish we say la otredad, the other part appears. Yeah, the other, right? Other. So we know, like the world, we search for the thing, and the otherness appears as what the thing it is not. I don't know. I hope I can be explaining myself. And this is not the same like in indigenous cultures, like the Maya or the Buddhist, right? Over there in those worldviews, we don't have like the basic particle or the uniqueness, the unique basic, right? We have like Hinduism, we have like two. We have both. We have both energies. Then when they, the yin yang, right? When they enter in dialogue, when they enter in dynamism, they make the world. So we don't have in Western worldview. We have like I don't know what word to use, but the uniqueness of the thing, like the one thing, and the otherness appears as su contradicción. What this is not.
Contradiction.
Exactly.
It's opposite pole.
So this is not the same in Hinduism and in Mayan cultures and in other indigenous cultures, where the uniqueness appears when the two energies of the world enter in dynamism, enter in a dance. The dance, actually, they use in Hinduism, they use this metaphor, right? So this is very important because this is very profound in how we see the world, right? This unique form of seeing, this makes us like to be able to dominar, Renata,
Dominate.
to dominate the what we're going to know, and this makes us like to see like subject and object, like the world is separated, right? And it has a lot of consequences in how we see the world. And for me, it's very important to keep to regain this in the analysis, so we can open like how are studying this, right? So modernity is a very important part of the problem, how we in the modern and in the Western world are seeing the world, actually, right? Another root that I talked about was the patriarchy. And this is the male or the masculine, the masculine energy domination of the world. Not only the woman, that is very important, but also the nature, also the indigenous cultures, also us as men, right? We usually think that patriarchy, well, it affects women and well, poor of them, right? But we men usually forget to understand and to analyze how this patriarchy also affects and oppresses us. Very, very important to do this analysis for me, because if we want to really understand what is going on, we have to know also for us men how patriarchy is oppressing us. And it is very, very important to understand that, right? And I like to think about this as, I'm sorry, when I move my mouse here, do you see it in the screen? Oh,
Yeah.
thank you, Renata. Perfect. So I like to talk about this predominance or unbalance of the yang energy, right? The yin energy in Hinduism is the feminism energy, etc. And the yang energy is more the masculine energy. It's not woman and man. It's feminine and masculine. It's very different, and it's very important that we understand this difference, right? And the last thing that I see, right, is this human ego. We humans, we persons, we human beings are made. This is not religious thing. If anyone wants to relate to it, it has nothing to do with religions. It has to do with spirituality, but spirituality and religion are two different things, right? So we humans are made of three parts. This is very obvious for me. Our body, that it's here, we can touch it, right? Our mind, we can think with it, we can make airplanes, we can make atomic bombs, or we can love people with our mind. But it's also this spirit part, like this energy that activates the body and the mind. Without this energy, we're dead. We can be we cannot live. So it is. Some people call it soul, some people call it spirit, some people call it energy, some people call it just, I don't know, different ways. But it is very important to acknowledge that it is some kind of energy going through our body, through our mind. And we humans are made of these three parts. What has happened in our Western world, right? The mind has dominated our worldview, our form of seeing the world, right? And it has like compressed or oppressed the spirit and the body. So we have almost forget that we have a spirit, that we have a body. We almost think that we are our mind. Remember the card, right? I think, therefore I am. So I think, therefore I am. It is not I have body, I have a spirit, and I have a mind, and therefore I am. No, it is I think, therefore I am. And this is very, very important, right? So we see the world through our mind. We see we understand this, and this has taken us to a very profound spiritual and existential crisis, right? Because we are not being fulfilled, we are not being happy, we are not being good or well. I don't know how to say, like in this world, right? And it has a lot to do with this, with the Western worldview, with this modernity, with the patriarchy, and with the human ego. And this is very profound, and this is very, very antiguo, Renata, like from a long time. Ancient, exactly. And this, we're talking about 5,000 or 6,000 years ago, when patriarchy established in human societies, right? And we will not be able to solve the problems that we're facing if we don't acknowledge this profoundness of the problem, right? So we have alternatives also at this level of profoundness, right? We have what I was calling before. This is like in the Western, like the unique or the one, right? In these other worldviews, we have what they call complementary dualisms, or in Spanish, polos complementarios. Like how you say poles, yeah, like an imán.
Yeah, poles.
They call it poles because it actually comes from the magnets. A magnet, the magnet has a positive and a negative pole. So if you cut a magnet by the half, you then gain again a positive and a negative and a positive and a negative. Like the nature of the magnet is have both parts. So this is the same. The nature of the basic ontological unity, to say, in this worldviews, right, is a complementary dualism, right? Because the basic ontologic unity is made of two parts, right? This is called the Hunabku in Spanish, right? It's a symbol. It's actually post Hispanic. It's very recent. El dibujo, the image, the image is very, very recent, but the concept is from thousands of years ago, right? So this wants to mostrar, Renata,
to show.
To show, yeah, thank you, this concept, right? And actually, if someone wants to do it, this is only one line. You can draw all this thing without taking out your pen from the paper. So it has a lot of things. They call it the Mayan yin yang. It's kind of the same idea, right? Also, we can try to rebalance this cosmological disharmony that we're living right now. How? Like by priorizando, Renata?
Prioritizing.
Prioritizing, thank you very much. Like this yin energy, this feminine energy. This is not has only to do with women. A lot has to do with women, but not everything. It has to do with the feminine energy. And we, man and woman, we both have masculine and feminine energy, right? So what is unbalanced in the world is this masculine and feminine energy. That's why I think what I think, right? So we have to work in this cosmological rebalancing. We have to work in this personal rebalancing, right? This mind that has grown a lot. How can we take it back to put it again in a balance with our body, with our spirit, and to recover our ternary condition? We are made of three parts. How can we regain this part, right? And what a lot of authors, they called the earth spirituality, or the earth's spirituality, right? And this wants to see the sacredness of the world in everything, in earth, in the tree, in the forest, in the water, in the clouds, in the stars, right? So not only inside the churches, right? This mythical and this spiritual world. So this makes us to transform our anthropocentric worldview. We see the world as if the world was made for us humans. And that is a very profound problem, because we think the world is made for us. And no, I think it is more, it would be better to understand us humans as a cancer, as a Gaia's cancer. What is a cancer in the body? Like a group of cells that duplicate and that grow a lot without control in a system, a body, right? That is a cancer. Cancer, right, Renata?
Yeah.
So if we see Gaia as a system, if we see Gaia as a system that we are part of, we are growing without control. We are destroying everything in our path, in our walk, and it would be for me very, very more interesting and apropiado or pertinente, appropriate to understand of humans or the civilization as a cancer of Gaia. And this again, I know it's hard to hear, but it's very important that we change our point of view of the problems, right? So, well, I won't stop more in that. I know this is the last part. I wanted to go all the way through the deepness of this problem. I'm sorry I have taken more time. I have like two more slides that I would like to share, because in all this problem, we know we need a paradigmatic transition, right? We face modern problems that have been made because the modern or Western knowledge, right? But we don't have inside the Western knowledge, we don't have the answers we are looking for. We need other point of view. We need other knowledges. That is why the image here, right? What is north and what is south? We have to shift. Like in the space, there is no up and down. There is no north and south. If we change, if we shift the way we ask our questions, we may find new answers, right? So what did Einstein said? We cannot solve the problems by thinking in the same way as when we created them. This is very, very obvious for me. This is for common sense, but it is not very common in how we analyze and we see the world, right? So for me, it's very important when we want to transform the reality, to transform the world, to recognize that the alternatives already exist. This is very, very important, because these other worlds we want to build and all these alternatives we want to, etc. It's very important that we acknowledge that they are already there. Not all of them, and not all of them are perfect, but there are all kinds of alternatives, all kinds of other organizations, of cooperatives, of investigations, of spiritual movements, of social economy movements, of other kind of knowledges movement. You know, they are there, and our first step is to see them, to recognize them, to wash our ears, right, to hear them, to be able to see them. This is very important. Boaventura de Souza treats this, and he talks about sociology of absences and sociology of emergencies, right? Like the things that are emerging. And for this, a dialogue of knowledges is fundamental. It's very important that we can build this dialogue of knowledges. So alternatives we have in all levels of deepness, from the human tasks to all the way to the cosmogonies of how we see, of how we understand the world. We have a lot of alternatives that we need to acknowledge that they exist, right? So this is the last slide. We have to recognize the depth of the crisis and the historical significance of the moment we are living, right? We need this transition period. We need to try to understand it, so we will be more likely to succeed in it. We don't know if this transition is going to last maybe 10 years, maybe 30, maybe 300 years. And this is very important, because we don't know how the climate change will affect us. We don't know how we are going to succeed in a different climate system, well, etc. Right? So we need to construct, to build this movement. For me, it's very important to move from resist capitalism, resist transnational enterprises, resist all this. Of these things that want to destroy our territories, and to convert them to re-existence, to make new movements that can resist, but also that they can build the alternative, the new thing, the new world. Oh, today, like as we talk, maybe we cannot transform the whole world tomorrow, but we can transform the relationships we are building all the time, and that can be made today and tomorrow. Like the way I relation with the people I work with, the trees that are besides my house, like with the river, with the spiritual world, with the sacred world, and that can be transformed today without intermediaries, right? So there are a lot of other things that I won't be talking about because I have already taken an hour. But I'm sorry, Cliff, that I took 20 more minutes that was planned. But this English thing, it's very difficult for me to put the ideas in words. So thank you to all of you that have heard all this.
Well, thank you, Jose. There are, I'm sure, many comments and questions that this has raised. In the chat, I see there's been quite a bit of discussion. And so if you have a question or comment you'd like to raise,
Yeah.
raise
Cliff,
your
and
hand.
actually Barry messaged me earlier that he had a question. So if you could give, I think everybody can speak, right? If they just unmute themselves.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I think Barry had a question, and also I saw one from someone else in the chat.
Yes.
From David. Yeah.
David.
Yeah, I try to be to the point. First, though, I'd like to really extend my appreciation to you, Jose, for, I don't know, it comes to me like pointing out so many important points of unity. It's not maybe the best way to put it, but that, I feel like really covered all these really important essential points that to me maybe most closely associate with the growth movement, which is kind of the global Buen Vivir, Salem Cachet type of thing. Yeah, so a lot of people share these values that you described in the Civilizational project, and including myself. And my question is to you is like your project and projects like yours, which there are many, in this moment, this global moment where Russia is pounding Ukraine, in some weird way at the behest of the U.S. And all sorts of things are happening in Mexico. I saw Obrador was telling the U.S. To keep its influence out of Latin America and Democracy Now! This morning, and everyone, the politicization of the U.S.-Mexican border, and our forest fires burning out of control. So we really have this fraught moment. How can we utilize these principles, to keep them close to us as we try to respond to what's going on in the world?
Okay, thank you very much, Barry. I don't know, Renata, if we make some other questions or we just start like the dialogue.
You can go ahead.
Well, yeah, thank you. So first, you talked about the growth movement, right? Yeah, I think that we share a lot of the criticism of the economical, like worldview, right? And how this a growth movement, because the economy is like always, if it doesn't grow, it enters in crisis and everybody loses their job and etc. So if we don't make this other system, economic system that can live without growing all the time, it can be great. I personally have my doubts. I really appreciated the growth movement, right? And I share a lot with, I have a lot of friends that sympathize with it a lot, but I'm a little bit skeptical, actually, that if that can be done. I hope it can be done. I really hope that we can really sustain our economies without this growing drug, right? Like this economy needs the drug all the time to grow. And I don't know, like if in the same framework, because it doesn't change like the theory or the basics of the economic theory. It uses like almost the same as the ecological economics or the ambiental economics. I don't
Environmental economics.
Environmental economics. Yeah, thank you very much. So they try to criticize, and they see that there's something wrong, but they use like the same theoretical framework, right? So I think that the degrowth movement can get stuck in there. I hope not. I really hope not, because I sympathize a lot. But I think for these transformational economies, that we need to open the canon or the dialogue or the point of view of our framework, right? So well, I just wanted to say that about the degrowth, because it for me is very well touched some fiber inside me with this degrowth comment, right? And about the other part, I don't know if I just got it right, and what did you tell me? But you were talking about the principles of the degrowth movement and these all these ideas that I was talking about, and how can we share it, right? Or yeah, well, for me, what I like or what I talk is like to open the dialogue of knowledges, right? I think that the growth has a lot of good things. I think the ecological economics has a very good ideas. I think solidarity economists have great ideas, but I don't think like one of them has all the answers, right? So what can we actually do, like to put them in dialogue, like to put them to talk? And where I work in a group of cooperatives in Chiapas, in Mexico, called Yomolatel. We have 4 cooperatives, 3 enterprises, I think, social enterprises, and it's very interesting because we have people that live in Mexico City, in Guadalajara, in Puebla, that are very near of the academic world, and we also have more than 400 families, indigenous Celtales, Celtal families living in Chiapas, that they are the basis of the cooperative. So it is very interesting when we have meetings, work meetings, like what is the price that we're going to pay for the coffee, or what is going to be the strategy of the products or anything. And we have very different worldviews, like sitting in the same table. Like the person that studied economy, the Celtal, that is the president of the Mesa Directiva, the directive board, and it is very, very interesting, because there is where this dialogue of knowledges stops being like a good idea, and it starts to be a good practice, right? So I cannot go like in a lot of examples about this, but it's very interesting how you see like new ideas being created, right? Like that they're a consequence of this dialogue. So I don't want to put here like, hey, now I have the answers. We all need to do this. No, not at all. Like I want to say, yeah, we're facing these problems, very deep problems.
Yeah, I never thought anything else. I mean, I'm with you. I mean, today it's talked about as the pluriverse, right?
Yeah. And the pluriverse exactly.
Pluriverse is essential.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you, Barry. Because I think the pluriverse opens like this idea that we live in a universe, and the one universe. You know, this idea of the one, the Western idea of the one, and we live in one world and one reality for everyone. And the pluriverse opens the idea that maybe it's not one reality, maybe it's not that one world. Yes,
yeah,
Barry.
but within that, right? So this is also responding to maybe a little bit this comment of Norma's in the chat about, you know, she didn't expect this to be a lecture about being religious like other dominant regimes. Like, I think it's, you know, it's referring to what you're talking about right now as well, like the importance of the pluriverse. But there's also unity in diversity. And that was the unity that I was talking about in this comment that provoked Nora's. And that is kind of the point I'm trying to put to you. I mean, the world is blowing up in front of us. And, you know, it's in all levels of our lives. It's like the movie Everything, Everywhere, All at Once that is playing in the United States right now is really a remarkable film. This will be a global phenomenon, this film. It's kind of about, it's really about being present in the world today and how excruciating it is. But how do we respond? Or how can we respond? I speak for myself in a sense, you know, just to be real specific, like here's the Supreme Court decision that's coming down. And, you know, a person very close to me is very intimately involved in the struggle. And, you know, to just talk about it, and then, but what do we do, right? And so there's demonstrations, Federal Building last Thursday, last Saturday, next Saturday. And, you know, and then, well, if I go, how do I go? And how do I bring this with me? I guess is what, you know, this consciousness with me. I mean, how can our social movements embrace this consciousness at a time when it is so greatly needed? And I guess I'd say the reason I feel like this consciousness is needed is because it is exactly this thing of recognizing diversity, but the importance of a certain kind of unity at this moment, a real political unity of, like, you know, specifically in the United States at this time. So maybe not, you know, how much it can focus on Mexicans, I don't know, but if it can't at least take account of a significant spectrum of movement in the US that can be united, everything is going to be lost because the movement will be divided by all these different issues. We can't, right? So, yeah.
Yes, but Barry, I love what you're saying, because I think it's very important for what we're trying to analyze, because this Western point of view understands unity not as diversity. What is the opposite of diversity? Like the uniqueness, right?
Like uniformity.
Yeah, like uniformity. Thank you, Renata. That's a great word. So in the Western world, you see, if we want unity, we need uniformity. And that is how we have like built our world, our economy, our civilizational project, our etc. So when you say this, it is very important because like people, countries like Bolivia, you know, that they have this huge social diversity, and they're trying to see how can they build this unity, because but in the diversity, and it can be achieved. I think we have to change our point of view. We have to change our paradigms of how are we seeing. But if we do not take the risk to try to understand and to solve the problems with new frameworks, with new point of views, we just will be repeating the story once and again, right? So I love the comment, Barry. Thank you very much. And I think there's another person.
Yeah, I think I really I wanted to make some space for David's question that has been hanging in the air for a while, and then I see Norma's hand up.
Great.
Oh, thank you. I think Jose did touch on this when he spoke of dialogue, but I was just curious how in your research you've seen indigenous communities or
Well,
cultures.
let's see, there's a question that has come in from a YouTube viewer, Bob Datz, who has emailed me this question, which I will put up here on the screen. He writes, it seems that science is moving closer to recognizing spirituality in approaching our civilizational problems than spirituality is moving toward physical reality. Science has identified dark energy without knowing about it, but it seeks to know more. And science is highly involved in the discussion of the need to live in harmony with nature and without our world rather than on top of it. Spiritualists, on the other hand, are out of the conversation when it comes to transforming the reality we are living in. They tend not to be socially engaged except for the pseudo-spiritual basic Islamic fundamentalists, Christian reactionaries, and Zionist oppressors. So how do we move the spiritualist into the social realm before it's too late? Okay, there's one for you, Jose.
Okay, and also it was David that I am writing this. So how do we move? But also I want to hear David that was in the middle of his comment.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. My question was in your research, how you've seen indigenous communities and cultures come to the question of which technologies to adopt and use, which aspects of modernity they find helpful, and then how they decide these things.
Okay, great. So we have a couple of questions there. I think both are very good. So David, in my experience, because what I've seen is that it's very different, the indigenous cultures in different parts of Latin America, right? Right now I'm here in Colombia. I'm working with Awa indigenous communities. They're called Awa. They're part in Ecuador, part in here in Colombia. And what I've seen is it's very different how they do things here than how it's done in Chiapas with the Celtales, right? They're both indigenous communities, but in this diversity that we were talking about, there are very different ways of approaching. How they do it in Chiapas, usually they have these assemblies, Renata, asambleas? Yeah, like this community assemblies, where they for a new technology or for a new government project or a new highway that they want to make, they usually make assemblies. These assemblies are very slow, very slow. They usually take 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, 2 days, 4 days. You know, it's a very different time lapse. Like the time goes very different when you are in a peasant community that they live like very near nature, near nature's rhythms, etc. That when we do these things in the cities. Here we go like this. Oh, we have 5 minutes more, blah blah blah, and here are very slow. So they usually gather all the people that want, and they start talking like we're in favor, we're not in favor, and they usually get to one thing that they call acuerdo. Acuerdo, Renata, in English?
Agreement.
Agreement. But the agreement, or the acuerdo in Spanish, it's when all the people in the assembly vote for the same thing. This is not like majority.
Consensus.
There is only agreement when all the people in the community say, we want this technology, we don't want this technology. We want the highway, we don't want the highway. And as if you can imagine, to get all the people to vote for the same thing, that can be a long process. But la fuerza, the force that gains, yeah. Sorry, Renata?
The strength.
Yeah, the strength, thank you. The strength, the social strength that it gets the decision when all the community is in the same idea, it's amazing. And that's why people, it's están dispuestos, Renata?
They are willing.
They're willing to give their life, to give their lives, to die, because the depth of the decision and the community is very, very profound. So they usually in Chiapas, they make assemblies. They usually have like regions where they have this region have, I don't know, maybe 10 communities, and here there are 5 or 20 communities, and they discuss this in different assemblies, regional assemblies, and they usually then have a central space or an assembly of representatives. So they in Chiapas they say que camine la palabra, like the word has to walk. The word, la palabra, walks like in the communities, then comes back, and they take the decision. But there are very different ways that they do that. Here in the Awa communities, it's more like a hierarchical kind of decision. Like it doesn't go down to all the communities and then go up again. So it only the representatives, yeah, the coordinators, they decide. So there are very different ways that it has been done. Yeah, that's from my experience. But what I celebrate from that, it's that almost in all the places that I've known, it's the presence of the dialogue, of the word. Like it's not like, oh, some people just decide and we voted for them and that's it. But like there's a presence of dialogue all the time, and very long meetings, hours. But that's the way that they do, right? And in the question about that Cliff told us, I want to say for something that for me is very important. We're talking about spirituality and religious are very different things. We usually confundimos.
Mix them up.
Mix them up, yeah. Like for me, the religion is the institutionalization when spirituality gets in an institution and it gets all the dogmas and all these rules and all this. We have to do this by one way. This is religious, because religious says I am Christian, I am Buddhist, I am Islam, and this is the way. This is the heaven, or this is not the heaven, or this is the cuando vuelves a nacer, Renata,
reincarnation.
Yeah, you will have a reincarnation or not, but this is the way. So religion, for me, or how I understand it, is the institutionalization of the spirituality. And that, when you put it in an institution, it gets all its dogmas, all its closedness, su cerrazón, Renata, like
yeah, the closure and closure.
Yeah, the closure, yeah. That is when you get it. But when we talk about the spirituality, we're not talking about one religion or any religion. We're talking about the energy of the world, right? So when we talk about the energy of the world, we are not saying that we're not talking about souls. We're not talking about what is wrong and what is right. We're not talking about my point of view is a good one and yours is not. For me, spirituality is just acknowledging that the world is a lot more than the materialistic point of view of the world. What does the Western worldview thinks? That only what it exists when what I can measure, what I can see, there is in the realism, but that worldview has been proven wrong during history, because it always appears new things. You know, when electricity didn't exist, or it has always existed, electricity, we just haven't discovered it. Electricity, we didn't acknowledge for our experience of the world, electricity wasn't part of it, was a part of the mythical or the spiritual part of the world, because we haven't discovered it yet. And materialistic people said, no, that doesn't exist because we cannot measure it, we cannot see it, we cannot interact with it. So that is part of the mythological world. But science has advanced, and science has known that there are some physical phenomena that we call electricity. And that this is all the electrons going through one another atom, and that makes a electric corriente eléctrica, Renata?
Current. Electric
Current, yeah, electric current, etc. And now Western people say, yeah, that has always been there. Now it exists. But it existed for all the time before and after we humans acknowledge the presence of electricity or radio waves or all this spectrum of light that is outside the visible spectrum of light. We can put a lot of examples about that. So when I say about spirituality or a spiritual part of the world, I'm not talking about how we humans are interpreting by religions that metaphysical world. I'm talking about just that metaphysical world. I'm just saying that that exists and that we have or we should approach and embrace these energies that we don't know, that are there, and that if we want to know, for example, now is very de moda, Renata, how you say that está de moda?
It's a fad.
Ah?
It's a fad.
Okay, exactly.
Right now it's a fad.
So now all this thing about how trees communicate them by the roots and by the mycelium of the hongos, Renata?
The mycelium through the fungi.
The mushrooms, it's exactly the world of the mushrooms, and by the roots, like we are scientifically knowing that the trees communicate one with one another in all the forest. And a scientific or a science people would say, no, that is just magic, that is just mythicism or stuff, right? But that is part of the world. Because if we don't see it, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It doesn't mean that what I think of that it's the truth. That is very different. What I'm saying is just there are a lot of energies, there are a lot of world, there are a lot of reality out there that we are not acknowledging, that we're not seeing, and that other cultures in this pluriverse may have been seeing for a lot of time, like Buddhism, like Hinduism. And I don't want to tell that now we all have to be Buddhist. That is not what I'm saying. Or that we all have to be Christians or Buddhist or anything. I'm just saying that there's a lot of reality over there that it would be very interesting that we open also to that part of the world. So when we talk, Renata, please, Renata.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to say that to me personally, but like we've had conversations and like I share a lot of what you say. But to me, I'm pretty agnostic in that sense. But it doesn't matter in the end, like what I think or what I believe or what. It's more like that we're using this Western mindset to destroy native land, to keep taking this colonialistic mindset. So maybe these energies might not be true to me or to the person next to me, but it's about the abuse of Western mindset over and the supremacy over the native indigenous culture mindset. And when we start taking it as, oh, we can't chop down this tree because it's extremely sacred for these people, and taking that seriously and taking that to heart, how does that change the power dynamics in the world? And then if I just see it from a very objective mindset, into like which worldview actually generates less war, less environmental destruction, less crisis of civilization. So anyway, I just wanted to say that, but I do see Norma waving.
Thank you, Renata. Yeah, Norma has her hand
Yeah,
raised.
Norma Harrison has been itching to speak.
Great.
Well, not too much, because everything that has come about in this presentation contradicts things that I see the way the world. So I don't want to get too far into it, and I don't want to hear again this a cloudy event going on in the sky or someplace, as opposed to the material. So my comment that arose when things were being exchanged is, it is harder, and you all heard this, I think, it is more difficult for people to imagine the end of capitalism, or I'm sorry, more difficult for people to imagine the end of the world. I got that backwards. It is easier for people to imagine the end of the world than it is to imagine the end of capitalism. The material is here in whatever form, but it is here. We don't have to go through into a spiritual realm in order to accept that materialism serves us well. I've advised that as far as conversation or how to talk about it, that if we can talk with everybody, if we can get everybody to talk about how can we provide housing for everybody, how can we provide health care for everybody, that we are making contact at the best levels that way, the most soothing levels, the most affirming levels, the level that takes away the fear of death, because we all know we die, but we're all afraid to have to die from the pains that would be imposed upon us by an uncaring world. So anyway, I've put most of my comments into the chat. If you feel like it, you can copy it and take it home and study it. But reality is very appealing, given the world we live in, given it, even the horror. But reality is fine, and all these spiritual devices are irritating. I'm going to go and let you say the same things over and over again to each other, and go do something else. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, my last comment was, your spirituality is very, somebody says it need not be any more dogmatic. Spirituality is very dogmatic. It requires you to submit to this remote kind of understanding. Also, the question about how people come to the conclusions to devise their society the way that they do. If you get a chance to look at the Dawn of Everything, have you seen that, about that book, The Dawn of
No.
Everything?
No.
Well,
but if you could put it in the chat, I would love to.
I said the words, The Dawn of Everything. You can look it up. It indicates the variety of origins of our thinking and behavior. The variety is extensive. He's talking about for the past, well, one start was 300,000 years, which I go for. But anyway, the past 20,000 years, 10,000, that people have always been doing what we do. Everything you look around and see, people have always been doing those things. There's no such thing as savage incompetence, dullards, and so forth. Everybody has always been as clever as we are today. So in those origins, in those surroundings, in those environments, people come up with how to live. So thanks for trying. Take care.
You too.
Likewise.
Okay.
Well,
And any last comments? We've been running over time, but
oh, there's one.
Center
Yes,
for Global
see-
Justice.
I forget his name. Cliff, do you see him waving?
Oh, yeah, Bob Stone. All
Hi,
right.
Bob.
Hi, Renata.
Uh-oh.
Oh no,
Uh-oh,
did you freeze?
you've gone off.
You can hear
Oh,
me?
there he is.
Yeah, now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
We
You,
do.
you tend to freeze and
You can't hear?
you've got an unstable connection, I guess.
That's what I keep being told. Thank you very much, Jose Andres. I wish I could have expressed myself, but I would like to hear and learn more of your thinking. It's very advanced and very synthetic. It brings a lot of things together that need bringing together. For example, you mentioned existential thought, and it's our situation. That is, I'm an existentialist. I've studied the philosopher Sartre, and I find he is this proximity of the indigenous cultures and insights that we are finally able to overcome and not just destroy with our imperialist capitalism, but learn from. Correct. We're in New Spain. We're in one of the most advanced cultures of the old world, and learn so much from it. That's why I love being in Mexico, and I'm headed for citizenship. Thank you very much, Jose Andres.
Well, thank you, Bob. I'm very sorry I didn't hear the last part because it was kind of it cut a little bit, but I think I got
Yes.
all the ideas, almost.
I'm sorry for the
No,
bad
no,
connection.
no. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
And
Yes.
well, I would like just I know we're in time, but to make a few comments about the previous question or comment, because for me it's very important, right? I don't know if Norma is still here, but if not, it doesn't matter. But I think that is a main part of the problem. That we I don't know, when she said that the spirituality is hugely dogmatic, I just don't understand it, because I think if she would have put religions are highly dogmatic, I would share with it perfectly, because that's what I think. But when we talk about the spirituality, I know that to a lot of people, she said it makes her irritating, right? It gives a stitch, it gives comezón, Renata, how you say?
it itches, it burns.
Itches, right? It itches to a lot of people because we have grown like in this worldview after, I'm talking culturally, right? After all this Edad Media, Middle Age, that religion like dominated the world. It was a paradigmatic basis, right? And we have evolved. I think it's the world. We have changed, but now we are living in a scientific and dogmatic paradigm, and that is very important. I'm not saying that science is not good. That is not. I love science. I wanted to say this. Science is great. It's a great form or a great way to know the world. But it's very important to say it is not the unique and it is not the only way. And it is very important for this also with spirituality. We see the world in a materialistic and in a realistic way, as if only what we see and we can achieve from reality is that exists. But I think, honestly, that is a very arrogant point of view. Like only the things that I see, or only the things that I can interpret, or only the things that I can manipulate, that exists, and all the other thing doesn't exist, right? And that is, I don't know if Norma is here, but if she is, we can talk about it. I think that is the main problem, that we say, no, we have the truth, we have the truth, and this is it, and all the other are wrong because this and that. I think this is not a position that opens to the dialogue, and that is a very arrogant position that says, I have the, or I think, or these people have the truth, and you don't have it because look at this, and I don't say I have the truth, and I don't say Norma doesn't have any of the truth. I think that in a dialogue we can make the truth to come. If there is something as true in this world, that we can also question that. Is there a true or a truth? I'm sorry about the confusion. Is there a truth, objective truth in the world? That is something we can achieve as humans. We, with these limited minds, with this, I don't know if we can really achieve it, you know? And that changes the way we approach to problems, the way we approach to discussions, the way we approach to this kind of discussions. Renata is well said, right? Mm-hmm. I don't want to Norma to think the same way that I do, but I wanted to establish a dialogue and to say, well, I think this, I have these things, you have these others, and then let's open the dialogue of knowledges, of spiritualness, of existentialism ideas. So in that, I think we can evolve, and we can build new ideas and new things. So, well, of course, she said, materialist is here. Of course, we live in a material world, but also we could interpretar, Renata, interpret a lot of more of the world if we would be willing to open that the reality and that the world is a lot more complex and a lot more than our tiny minds can imagine. That is what I want to say. And where is that path? Not only, but a lot of it is in the spiritual path. I insist, I'm sorry that I insist a lot, not in a religious path. Everyone can make, I know some atheists that are very spiritual. And they say, I don't believe in God. And well, good for you. But you live in a way, and you believe in the energies of things, and you don't see the tree only as a tree, as the materialist particles of the tree. Maybe the tree has a little more energy. Maybe the tree has a spirit. Maybe the tree can talk. Maybe the tree can feel. Maybe. And that opens a lot of reality beneath us, you know, and that's how I would like to close. I know it's very provocative. I like to be provocative, but but it's very, very interesting what reality opens in front of our eyes when we open to things that the reality can be much more vast than what we can imagine. So, well, thank you very much. Thank you for your patience, and thank you for the invitation again. Thank you, Barry, for the
thank you, Jose, for a very provocative talk. And thanks to Renata as our backup translator. Today's webinar will be available on YouTube, as all of our previous webinars are also, at globaljusticecenter.org. And I invite you to join us again next Monday at the same time for a talk on Mexico's fourth transformation, and by Bill Gallegos. That's at 1 o'clock Central Time. For now then, let me just sign off by acknowledging our webinar team, Roberta Robles, Bob Stone, Olivia Canal, Liz Mestras, and Gregory Diamant, and yours truly. And then, now this is Cliff Duran signing off for now. Ciao.
Well, thank you all very much, and thank you for all the comments and for the invitation.